week of people left. I wanted to start with the basics. So, who here knows where money comes from? I see a lot of smiles, but some of you have looked ahead. Does it come from alligators? Does it come from trees? Or does it come from chickens? Do chickens use money? No, they don't. The high schoolers thought this was really interesting. Money comes from people, right? Other people. Now, as a little bit of a follow-up, the high schoolers were then interested. They're like, well, how do I get more people to give me more money? and the answer is fairly simple. Just become more valuable, right? For those of you who don't know me or are meeting me for the first time, I just had a little brief introduction where I've been working with these Hawaii businesses with Hawaii's Geek Squad since back in 2006 when we got started. That was at Best Buy. And you may have seen me on different appearances. I've been on Think Tech, KHNO, KHON. I do a lot of news segments, and I've also been on PBS Hawaii. And each day, kind of when I wake up and we meet together as a team, we look for ways to keep Hawaii's businesses growing. How do we keep them protected? How do we keep them specialized, optimized, and what kind of new technologies can we bring in to help them do this? And so that's what gets me up every day. And we have an upcoming book. This book is called Doing Business in Paradise, Lessons Learned from Working with Some of the World's Most Compassionate People. Over the course of all this time, I put together a lot of stories and lessons, and I wanted to share them with everyone as well as with the world. What's going to differentiate a business that succeeds or one that fails is the habits. Now, just a quick, question about habits. I mean, how often should you brush your teeth? Should it be twice a day or twice per week? Pretty obvious, right? And when it comes to habits also, how often should you tell your employees that you appreciate them? Every day or once per year? Who here knows all about KPIs? They're called key performance indicators, and a lot of organizations and some of your clients as well have to have their KPIs in order, otherwise they're not going to become good customers. So I'm going to start with a story here. I was at a client, and we were going to meet with them about something, and I was waiting in their waiting room, and I was in there typing away, and I noticed in front of me that there were these 3 tall beakers that were, just off to the side. Each one was a different color, and on the first one it said the word can't. Second one it said the word won't. Third one it said the word don't. Typing away. Staff member walks by, drops a few poker chips into the can't jar, a few more into the won't jar, and keeps on walking. I didn't think much of it. Went back to typing. A few minutes later, another employee comes by, plops in some more poker chips. Okay, it's a little weird. Went back to my emails. A few minutes later, it happens again with a different employee. I got interested. So I went up to one of the staff members. I said, what's the deal here? What's going on? And they explained to me the rules of the game. Pretty simple. He says, you know what? At the beginning of each week, we all get the same number of poker chips. And what happens is that throughout the week, if we say either of these words in our verbal communications with each other, with customers, emails, by phone, anything, as long as we can think it, just don't say it, then we have to submit a poker chip into each one of these 3 jars. And that was interesting. I said, okay, so what happens? Is there a winner, or how does this work? She said, oh yes, of course. Each week we tally up to see who's made the most progress. She said, we don't call them a winner, we just call them the most progress. And the one who makes the most progress at the end of the month gets free movie tickets. And if you kind of think about it, it's kind of a simple little silly game, you wouldn't think much of it. But this company had had double-digit growth year after year for the past 2 or 3 years by that time when I was meeting with them. And that should tell you something. Remember we were talking about habits? The road to a successful health, the road to successful business, is not about having one big maneuver. It's about lots of incremental changes, lots of small moves that is going to win that chess game for you. The first question to ask yourself is, on a day-to-day basis, when you interact with your fellow employees, are you using more positively charged words or negatively charged words? A little bit of a side note, If you study for any sort of graduate level exams, that's one of the tricks, is when they throw words at you that you don't understand. You look, okay, is this a positively charged word or negatively charged word? And can I pair that with one of the A, B, C, D, E answers there? So the idea is positive and negative charge is a real thing. You can use that to your advantage. And one example, we hear sometimes is maybe a fellow employee might come up to you and say, I'm dying of hunger. Really, are you dying of hunger? Are you really dying? No, that's negative charge. So let's say something like, let's get lunch, right? I'm tired. That's a Monday slogan. I'm so tired. How about, I'm feeling okay. You may not be. You may really be tired. Just say, I'm feeling okay. I'm too busy. I don't have the time. Who's heard that one? Yeah. I can do it tomorrow. Will that work for you? Or, I just don't know. Let me just check on that. So there's words that you can replace them. And of course, every once in a while you may hear this in your organization. Today's a bad day. Just zip it and keep it in there. So the crab trap, the way it works, here's the story. So the fisherman, he's on the pier, and he says, I'm going to catch some crabs. So he takes a basket, puts a little bit of yummy food at the bottom, and throws it over. Falls to the bottom of the ocean there and sits there, and a few crabs are milling around. One crab sees that there's a basket with some little food in there. He says, oh, yum, yum, get some food. So he walks over to the basket and starts eating away, and he's very happy. And another crab sees him and says, wow, I want to get some of that great food too. So he walks over and starts munching away at the food. And the other crabs see that these two crabs are having a crab party, so they show up and they all start eating away, and eventually there's like a whole bunch of crabs just all partying it up in this basket. But the crab number one, the ground zero crab, he sees there's no more food left. He says, I'm gonna get out of here. And he tries to get out of this mass of crabs. And as he's trying to get out, the other crabs grab his legs to the point where they'll actually break his legs to keep him from getting out of that basket. And the analogy is with the crab trap is that people are the same way. They'll gravitate and grab. And the fisherman sitting up on the pier, feels that there's all this activity going on down there. So he pulls up the basket, and it's lunchtime on the pier. Sebastian would be very upset. How could these crabs be trapped so easily? Key performance indicators. Now, this is critical because it shows whether your organization is out there doing what it's supposed to be doing. Your organization is fairly complex. Some other organizations are a little bit simpler to understand. For example, are we feeding enough homeless people? Are we taking care of enough children? Are we helping enough people get loans so that they can continue to commute to work and buy cars and whatever else? So these kind of KPIs are very critical. And when you speak with your own clients, if they don't have good KPIs in place, you're going to have trouble with them. Does that make sense? So, for example, if you have a lifestyle business versus if you're a true entrepreneur, you're going to have a very different set of KPIs. Who here is familiar with the difference between a lifestyle business and an entrepreneurial business? So a lifestyle business is someone who is, for example, an independent AC person, or they're a plumber, one-man band kind of thing. They do everything themselves. They have bought themselves a job. So they do all the accounting, the bookkeeping, the marketing, customer fulfillment, sales, quoting, everything else. And it's generally like 1 or 2 or 3 man shop. That's like the maximum. Versus a true entrepreneur, when they create a company, they put good KPIs in place that everyone can understand. They create a structure and a machine that can go out and generate the money and do what they need to do to help other people so they can become compensated and have sustainability. And if they have those good KPIs in place, that is a good prospect for you to engage with in your industry. Does that make sense? So, the opposite is true when things go bad. So, if an organization does not have a good set of KPIs in place, they tend to blame outside circumstances when things aren't looking so good financially. And these are actual quotes from clients that we had before they went out of business. We are waiting for HECO to allow more people to buy solar. We're waiting for tuxedos to come back into style. That's a big laugh. And then this one was sad. We're waiting for manufacturing to come back to America from overseas. This last one I kind of felt bad about. He was It was about 6 weeks from going under at the time. I didn't realize it. I didn't say anything, but I just kind of held my mouth. I said, I don't think it's going to happen. But this is true. And you're going to have a lot of KPIs in your industry. And unfortunately, management will sometimes go to an event and they'll come back and they'll say, we have these new KPIs now. You need to follow them. And what they're probably doing is they're engaging with other members of their industry and they're trying to kind of become all the same. Like, oh, this other company has this set of KPIs. Let's follow them. Let's follow them. And that, unfortunately, is a sure way to become commoditized. What that means is that you are now competing based on price, because from the consumer's perspective, it's all the same. And that's a dangerous place to be. It's very difficult to maintain long-term stability that way. So the way out of this pit is to find one KPI that everyone can agree upon. And then for us personally, what we focus on is how many devices are we protecting? Because then those devices represent people, and those people represent families, homes, businesses, etc. And so we kind of start with just the number of devices. Simple, simple. Everyone was kind of thinking that the world would look like Blade Runner and we'd have giant signs. So we created this digital touchscreen solution that we put into high-rise buildings. It would replace those common cork boards that cost $10 with this $10,000 solution. It was a very hard sell. We're actually invited through the Shark Tank, the TV show. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. They have several rounds of where they vet applicants. We went through several rounds of vetting, and then the entire industry kind of fell apart and kind of lost interest. But we made that mistake, right? And sometimes organizations are unfocused and it's completely unconscious. Who here knows who Kevin O'Leary is from Shark Tank? Shark Tank. He's like the top guy at Shark Tank. Now, Shark Tank is like one of the most popular network TV shows out there. I encourage you guys to watch it. It's really interesting. Every episode, they bring in a series of entrepreneurs. Those entrepreneurs give their pitch, and a bunch of sharks, if they like the product or the service or whatever they're pitching, can then invest or make offers to invest in that company. And typically, those companies end up being on the shelves in retail stores. Bed Bath & Beyond, you'll see these all the time. And this is like their kingpin guy. You call him Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. And I had the privilege of seeing him talk a couple of years ago. Fascinating guy. And at the end of his presentation, he had a wonderful story to share with us. I'm going to share that with you. He said, there's this interesting secret that we've discovered in the investment world. He says, what we do is we look for organizations that are in the bottom quartile in terms of customer service for their industry. Now, for those of you not familiar with statistics, quartile, right? Top 25%, 75, 25, 0 to 25. So bottom quartile in terms of customer service ranking. And they look for specifically niche industries. So niche professional services industries. And what they do is the guys come in, they buy that organization, and then they focus only on raising their customer service ranking. They don't change production, they don't change product, they don't change pricing, zero, nothing. And then they move that over the course of 12 months up to the top 25% for customer service ranking. So what that means, investment house comes in, they buy it, they bring up the customer service ranking, then here comes the magic. He says, then we raise prices by 15%. And the result is zero attrition. Attrition is a customer falling off, customer canceling service. 0% of customer falling off. And what that tells them is that customers are willing to pay for good customer service. Now, from an investment perspective, that's a 15% return. 12 months, not bad, right? So now their new experiment is, can we take it up to 20%, 30%? How high can we push this? Because good customer service means that the customer is willing to pay for it. It's not about the money. And now we're going to talk about management's hot button topic. And that is millennials. No one's nervous. We're going to talk about your kids here. This is important. Now, a client of mine, great guy. He has a very successful engineering firm. And he told me this story, and I thought I'd share it with you. He says, not too long ago, I hired this great engineer. He came out of school, he had a little bit of work experience, very enthusiastic. He came in, he came in on time, he did his work on time, everything was great. But this weird thing he did, just really, I couldn't figure it out. I said, what was that one thing? He says, you know, you'd always ask me, did I do a good job? Was this to your liking? And then he'd keep asking more questions, like, why are we building this building? Why are we doing things this way? And, you know, he would give the typical answer, because we got the contract and that's what the customer wants. Shut up, do your thing. But that employee just kept, you know, asking these questions. And about a year later, the employee quit. And he says, you know, this is one of the best employees I had. I couldn't figure out why he left. And so we talked about it, and we came up with the answer. And I'm going to give that to you in a minute. But first, let's step into what these millennials are dealing with here. This might help you understand it. So they're the punchline for ads. If you watch a lot of YouTube, you know, these ads pop up, a lot of millennial commercials, late night TV shows, TV hosts, they talk about that. And, you know, I'm not sure if anyone would really like that, because they're kind of viewed as these kind of needy children, like this, you know, please help me, and these are my kids begging for something. You know, my daughter, you know, of course, she wants things at the store all the time. I think this was Home Depot, actually. You know, it doesn't matter where you go, they want something, right? So this is how they're seen. And you know, the truth is that, you know, my daughter and my son, they're only 6 and 9, but they still know a lot about the world. And I think they're getting the sense, and I do know that young adults definitely have the sense, that previous generations had like this ladder to climb, where they could, you know, start an organization, and they had kind of like this guarantee of going up in the ranks as long as they put in their time. And the contrary is that now they're kind of walking into this workplace that's the complete opposite. They're going to have multiple jobs throughout their career. There's this kind of problem where one job may come up and then it becomes outsourced or becomes irrelevant very quickly. All right? They have to continue to retool, and they have this crushing debt from college just to participate. If you don't have that college degree, you can't get a good job just to start, just to play the game. And parents like us, we know this. So about 2/3 of parents believe that their kids, so your kids, are not going to do as well as perhaps you did. And so there's kind of like this sense of desperation. And, you know, they understand that the world that they're living in is going to get worse every year. It's going to get hotter and colder. We're going to have climate change. They're going to have a completely different workplace from 10 years ago versus today. And there's just going to be this skyrocketing cost of living that has no signs of slowing down, and the rate of pay is not commensurate with that rate of inflation. Funny thing, who here has met their significant other online? Nobody. Guess what? We're old, all of us. We're all old. We met our significant other by doing it the old-fashioned way, talking. Isn't that weird? But if you go to the mainland now, and I noticed this, it's really interesting. If you walk through the airport, everyone, my phone's not with me, intentionally, but they're like this the whole time. They will not look at you, there's no interaction. The whole dating space has gone completely online. And this is a new phenomenon, probably like 10 years tops. And a buddy of mine, single, and he filled me in on like what this is like, which is fascinating. He says, you wouldn't believe it, you know, this is all metrics driven, just like, you know, a business. Like you have like number of impressions, right? Number of conversions. He says we have to have I hired a professional profile writer and a professional photographer who airbrushed me so I would look attractive, because the next guy, he's like a swipe away. I mean, it's crazy, but it's true. And if you're in your mid-20s, you're like, I really want to meet somebody, but man, it's really hard to compete with this guy who's got this professional profile and this professional photographer. Oh man, it's a little frustrating. To be fair, I have millennial staff. I see it firsthand. It's frustrating for them. So, and this continues, it's not just in the dating scene. I was on PBS Hawaii, this is recently, and this came up about, it was about retaining millennial talent and what it's going to take to do that. And you know, I brought up a lot of these points while I was talking. If you kind of Google my name and you see that, you can watch the whole interview. And it was weird because while I was talking, you know, I heard like this little commotion going on behind the cameras. And I was thinking, like, what are they talking about? I don't know. I'm just gonna keep talking, whatever. So I talked, and afterwards I walked backstage, and a lot of the staff approached me. They're like, wow, you get us. For the first time. He says, guess what? One of the biggest things that you said that we really liked is that you called us people. Until now, we've just been millennials. Why, we're just people. Just call us what we are. And I said thank you, and I was very polite, and I didn't really think much of it. But then the next day at our office, we got calls from other young people who were also frustrated and felt the same way, and felt that I had related to them sometime. And then I think they re-aired it about 3 or 4 times, and every time it re-aired, we got more calls. So I had some sort of nerve there. At least maybe I understood them for the first time, and I wasn't afraid to talk about it. Helping people see the beauty of the land. Wow, right? And for us, we're protecting businesses all around the world. And those businesses, those have employees. And they have families, and they have mortgages, and they have all these other things. Why not protect them? Because we're protecting their entire lives and their families. Neat stuff. So you're probably wondering, is there anyone who's really doing this right? I pointed out all these little problems, and one of our clients is Gourmet Events Hawaii. Fantastic event planning company. They create these events, and their major goal is to create these once-in-a-lifetime experiences for everyone who goes to the event. And they do it very well. Now, that doesn't come about by accident. They have these clear KPIs, so how much profitability they make per event. If they're not profitable, they cannot continue to create these world-class events for people. They're not going to have these great experiences. And they have this kind of growth-minded culture, where every month they have a new book to read. They're always encouraging their existing employees to go to new courses to expand their skill sets and improving skills. In fact, funny story, I was at their office, and they have a normal office like any other organization, and they have a kitchen kind of in the background. And I'm talking, and I just keep hearing dishes breaking. And I'm wondering, like, why are there dishes breaking in this office? What's going on? Is it a wedding? Like, what's going on here? And so I walk over to the kitchen, and I notice that the staff there have these big plates, those big round trays, and they have all these little plates on there, which don't have food on them, but I presume at a real event they would. And I asked them what this was all about. He says, oh, what we found is the worst thing that can happen to anyone at any event is that food gets spilled on them. And it happens all the time. I said, wow, so what are you guys doing about this? He said, well, we're in the kitchen here, we're practicing. And what we're doing is, we have these heavy plates with all these, this simulated food on there. And the other staff members will come up and bump them and hit them and like put chairs in front of them to try to get them to trip up. And yeah, they did get them to trip up. They broke some plates, but you know what? They did it in the kitchen rather than at an event where, Tutu gets green beans on her hair. It's not gonna work. A couple years ago, we had some real health challenges in our family, and I'm sure a lot of you have had the same things in your family. It kind of helps you put things into perspective, and I hope that I can share some of that with you. Because while I was kind of staring at the abyss, we're reminded of 3 real critical things. First is that you might work harder for someone else than just yourself, right? So maybe that grandma who's coming inside who really needs this loan, maybe you're going to work just a little bit harder just for them, right? I do know in particular that when the diagnosis came, I worked really hard, and that year I made the most revenue I had in my entire career. And it wasn't because I was working, for a new car or something like that. It was because I was working for healing, and that was really important to me. Second thing is until. And this until is a very important word. In fact, my name is Attila, so it kind of sounds like until. It's like in there. Who here has kids? Yeah, lots of kids. Now, when your kids were learning to walk and they were doing this thing and grabbing on everything and breaking things, did you tell them, oh, stop, don't try to walk, just, no. They're gonna keep trying until they walk, and you know it. And then when they walk, they're gonna run everywhere and crash into things, and you're gonna let them do it because they keep trying to get better. And as adults, we kind of maybe sometimes forget. You gotta keep doing these things until you succeed. Like, you gotta keep trying new things until that health comes about. You gotta keep trying new things until that organization is where it needs to be in its impact and its productivity, right? Third thing I found is that it's easy to get faked out. kind of lose your whole sense of urgency. So my son is 9, and so he's going to be going to college in roughly 9 years. Well, it's easy, right? But we don't tell him he's going to 9 years. We say he's got 9 Christmases left until you're out of the house. So when you have that kind of a little bit of perspective, it's the same thing, 9 years, 9 Christmases. It's like, maybe we're going to make this Christmas just a little bit more special. Because we only got 9 left, and we have 8 left. We have 7 left. We got 2 left, right? It's a little bit different. But I'm gonna tell you something that's true, and you know it. It's all just life. Work life, personal life, it's the same thing. You're all just living. And I'm really hoping that I gave you something, maybe just one idea that you can take today. You can use it to not just improve your work life, but your personal life, because it's all just life, guys. Thanks for your time.